You're in for a treat. You're in for an absolute treat this week because I'm interviewing the guy behind my favorite travel TikTok account right now. His name is Chris. His handle right here. It's a little world. Again, it's a little world. This guy is young, he's funny, and he travels to really cool locations that are counterintuitive. He's going to share with us his motivations and is going to also share a lot of his adventures. He's always getting into something interesting every time he travels. And he has a very open, different perspective on the whole thing. So give Chris it's a little world a follow on TikTok and YouTube. And also, it's February, guys. I don't know if you knew, but it's my birthday month. I don't want to be a birthday bitch, but I'm going to ask you one thing for my birthday. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button. Maybe share this with one or two friends. Share it with your mom. And if you're close, maybe with your dad, if you're close. Now, I would appreciate it. Let's just start the show. I'm very excited to be talking to you because our parents told us to not make friends online, but I consider you one of the few friends that I've made on because I really like the videos that you put out there.
Definitely.
I appreciate so much that you're taking the time to record with.
I'm happy you asked me.
How long you been putting things out there and whatever social media?
I must have started 3 years ago on my first trip. I went to Egypt. I just turned 19, I think. It was during COVID, and I went to Egypt, and I got luck immediately with my idea. So I think it got like 300,000, and since then I've just been going places and recording.
I was curious about that because, I like to learn a little bit origin stories of heroes and villains. What's your origin story? Why Egypt?
Why Egypt? Well, I did make a TikTok actually regarding that, and I put it like the Aladdin movie, the live action Aladdin movie. That's not far off, to be honest. It was a good film, but I wanted to travel anyways. Egypt was one of the places that was open during COVID, and obviously the pyramids. Everybody wants to see the pyramids. So I went for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. I went back for another 2 weeks recently. The Egyptians in the TikTok comments, I don't know if you've seen them, but they can be brutal sometimes.
Oh, they do? What is the sentiment in the comment section?
Yeah, it really depends, but a lot of my videos early on went viral just because of the places I was recording. They were either unhappy with, or then people defending like the place exists. So a lot of back and forth. And so I found that conflict is the best way to garner views.
You cracked the algorithm. That's what I'm hearing. But I find it very interesting because when I see in English, because I do have some videos that I put in Spanish for Spanish speakers. And English is well dominated by what we think is a stereotype of a travel influencer, which I don't have any problem with. It's just kind of like the same. And when I find someone like you putting experiences out there and in a way that are so honest, I think I'm automatically hooked. It feels like a glass of water in the middle of Egyptian desert.
Yeah, I think I try to be as honest as possible because, like you said, it's not that common in travel because I feel like everybody's scared to offend. But as long as people understand that things can happen anywhere, and I'm not documenting exactly the country, but my experiences. Otherwise, everybody would be the same. And then it would just matter who can take the best pictures, the best videos, because I certainly can't. I'm not good with the camera. So I figured I'll just put my honest experiences out there, maybe crack a few jokes and see what happens.
Hey, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. And I see it as, do you think of it as, I'm like interviewing the artist. Do you think yourself as like you're creating a journal entry? It feels like that at times.
Yeah, some of them are like purely documentary. Like I did a little series once. It didn't get good results, but I just like making it random cities I found on Google Maps. Because I always, even if I'm going to like tourist cities, I want to include one city. Like I went to Bayaguana in the Dominican Republic. Really nothing going on there, but just interesting to see what's going on. So I like.
Well, let's talk about the process. What's your process? How do you plan a trip? What's your planning process?
It could definitely vary because I just tried a trip recently that didn't work out. But so some things require more planning. Whereas like a lot of places I'll show up with no idea. maybe just what I know about the country from being interested. And then, so I'll just see what's going, like Kyrgyzstan. The first time I went, I had no idea anything outside of Bishkek. And I just went, I found out, don't always get to see it. I went during winter, terrible time to go to Kyrgyzstan. But yeah, sometimes I'll just show up with no plans, no hotel reservations, and just, it doesn't always work out, but it could be a great trip.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's just the fact that you don't plan as much keeps you very engaged once you land. Do you feel like all your senses are in alert? How do you feel when you get to a place that you don't know, you've never been, and you don't even have anything booked?
There's definitely some adrenaline, especially in the early hours of the morning. If you arrive somewhere in like 4 a.m. on the streets of Mumbai or something, but it's also hard to find a hotel at that hour. You know, a lot of places are closed, but I spent some time on benches waiting for stuff to open, but definitely adrenaline, a little bit of nerves, but nothing too crazy.
You know, it's funny you mentioned, because I think you put something out there about, you talk about Mumbai, and I was surprised on the road. I was like, oh, there are so many tourists coming down here to India. Everything is a hotel. That doesn't mean they have rooms, right?
Yeah. I guess sometimes it means it's a restaurant, but yeah. I got a comment saying it's the same in Somalia. So I guess in a few parts of the world, it's just lost in translation.
I was really surprised that there are so many hotels here, but now they're not. They're just restaurants. So, all right, let's talk about Egypt. How long did you go for, and how many places did you went to within Egypt?
So the first time I went for 2 weeks, mostly Cairo, but I went to Sinai as well and St. Catherine's to climb the mountain, Jabal Musa, beautiful at the sunrise. But I had a flight booked to Luxor as well, and I slept through the alarm, so I missed that.
Were you partying the night before? Did you even sell alcohol at their bars?
Yeah, no, I partied after. I'm a Nile. I don't think I should. Hopefully the Egyptian government doesn't watch this, but have a couple of beers and one thing. You could rent the party boats on the Nile and everybody dances, has a good time.
Oh, shit. Okay, that's interesting. Do you go alone, or do you have like a sidekick?
Yeah, usually alone.
No one is interested in joining you when they see actually what you do. You don't have any of your boys telling you like, hey, can I go next time?
It's my hometown crowd wouldn't be down for the Mauritanian iron ore train, to be honest. But I've met some people online through TikTok that are interested in the same kinds of things. So maybe something in the future around that.
I was joking around, but I was serious. I was like, I'm gonna meet you a couple nights if you're in a cool place, because I'm peculiar. So I know with friends, I have a max of 2-3 nights, but I mostly like to just be on my own. And my wife is the only person I can travel for like weeks on, and then there's not a problem. But you do such a cool stuff. I'm more like a budget, I guess. Like whatever the deal is, I will go. And deals mean demand, right? So with the flights, when people want to go, they're probably going to find deals. And I have not found any deals on any of the cool places you have visited. So how do you go about like buying flights?
That's a good question, because for like most of the year, so I used to work at a restaurant. Now I'm living in Paris. It's a bit more complicated with the money, but I used to just always go on Google Flights, select multi-country trip, and just put in a whole bunch of different places, whatever cool country I wanted to visit. And I would change it. You know, I didn't really care which country I went to, as long as like 2 weeks per country generally to get a good feel. If I want to go back, I'll go back. Like obviously I've been back to Egypt. So I just go multi-country, and I usually have a budget in mind. Maybe like I don't want to spend more than $2,000 on tickets. So I'll switch the countries until I find under 2,000. And it's easy now. I have the time while I'm in school that I could just take a whole summer. And the issue with that, though, as soon as I have the money to book the flights, I do it. And then it's kind of like a race to see if I can make enough money to survive by the time the trip actually comes around.
Man, I feel it 100%. I'm just curious, and if it's a dumb idea, you let me know. Have you thought about monetizing a YouTube channel or something like that just to support?
Definitely. Yeah, I think it would be really cool. And I didn't think people would be so interested, but a few of my videos have done quite well. It's always something I'm interested in, but it's also very embarrassing to be walking around filming yourself. And
Extremely.
I even noticed, like, if I see somebody walking around, like I was in Prague recently, I saw somebody filming themselves and I was like, this guy, you know, but it's cringe until there's success, right? Because if I saw like one of the big travel YouTubers walking by, I'd be like, oh, cool. So I think it's embarrassing when you're starting out and if somebody asks how many subscribers you have and you're like 50. Yeah.
That was great. I guess 6 because I put like 2 videos. It's hilarious. I think where I am in life, if someone catches me like I'm fucking like from facing just talking to him, I'll die on the spot. But I think other people can really pull it off. Um, I'm more self-conscious about that stuff. But that will be a good way to, because I think your approach is unique. I'll say that. A lot of people I can tell they want to go to those places because they just want to do the thing they saw in another different video. Let's talk about, I don't know how to pronounce it, Mauritania, the country, Mauritania, and the train ride, right? So it's really cool. I'm not taking that away from anyone, but I love the fact that you went there and you kind of gave the like a more like honest, again, honesty I think is big in your art. How was that experience?
It is what you think it would be. It's 18 hours on a train through the desert. And I think you're referring to the video I made, like kind of a how-to, because a lot of people sensationalize it. That I see all the YouTube titles like most dangerous train in Africa, deadliest train. It's not really that. Tons of people take it a day, mostly locals. It's a fun ride, you know, you get to see beautiful stuff and the nighttime sky is incredible out there in the Sahara, but it's not what they crack it up to be. And I would go back and do it again because I only went one way. The other way is the famous way with the iron. You get the good picture. But it's a fun experience for sure. Just not as dangerous as they would say.
I see. And when you go to those places as an American, what's a culture shock that has stood out over time?
I would say a good one because I knew that was probably going to be a question. Mostly the lines, if there's a line where it's like they segregate the boys and the girls, that was a bit weird for me when I just arrived in Egypt. But nothing's that shocking anymore. I went to Pakistan during Eid al-Adha, where they slaughter the cow and eat it. And so seeing the carts with the guts on them was a bit, you know, the stench. But it was fine.
You just reminded me of the whole dynamics between Pakistan and India, especially in comment sections and social media, is wild.
No.
And the fact that they do that, and then in India is like a sacred animal. It's just interesting, that dynamic. You've been to both Pakistan and India. Any preference?
Great clip right here. Get the people fired up. It's a hard one, but also not, because I would go with Pakistan, to be honest. I feel like I'd be more likely to revisit India because there's so much to see and do. But in terms of like hospitality, everybody in Pakistan wants you to feel welcome. Whereas in India, I'd say it's like 50-50. You'll meet like 50% people want you to feel welcome. 50% want some money or some sort of hustler.
Yeah, the hustlers. I was just had conversations with people. I'm like, no, the scammers. I'm like, maybe it's because of the call center scamming situation, right? It's not Indian 100% of the time. But when you're there, I interpret it most are like they're just hustlers, just want to make a buck. And if you give them the chance, better believe they're gonna take some money out. But they're not gonna rob you. They're just gonna try to show you nothing and then tell you owe them.
I think the scamming thing comes from like the dishonesty. If you get like a tuk-tuk driver to bring you somewhere, you agree on the price, and then he stops at his friend's shop and doesn't want to keep going. I think that's where the scam comes in. But a lot of hustlers too.
I had experience of born and raised in Colombia, and I've been in South America quite a bit. I will say that, scamming and robbing is like straightforward down there in Latin America. So it's when I went to India, I'm like, no, I can tell they're not gonna rob me. But if you give them a chance and you're gonna be a little bit dummy, then yeah, you're gonna have to give them some money for something that doesn't require or shouldn't be compensated. But I never felt unsafe in India. But also, I don't think I'm as adventurous as you are. How do you deal with safety when it actually comes to putting yourself into a tough spot in a weird block or part of the city? How do you handle it?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of it just comes from instinct. You know, if something feels not right, obviously you try to get out of there as quickly as possible. Somebody weird is talking to me, I don't feel rude for just walking away. or just ignoring in general. Usually if somebody tries to stop you on the street, it's not always for a good thing, or generally never. So just keep walking and ignore. And that was the case in Ethiopia for sure. I'm sure you've heard about my time there.
No, let's talk about it.
I stayed only 5 days, supposed to be there for like 2 weeks, booked an early flight out because of the rock throwing at me. So the tactic is mostly there's two guys and you walk between them. One of them grabs your arm and the other goes into your pockets, right? So they get a tight grip. But once you figure that out, you're not going to walk between two guys. So they'll kind of like, they know, so they're more aggressive about it. And so you just have to like hit them really. And then they'll hopefully stop. But the police can be right there and they'll still go for it. And police won't really help, but they won't stop you from beating these guys. And yeah, there was a good amount of rock throwing.
That's wild. That's wild because it comes from many reasons, I guess. Like when a country has gone through like a lot of social situations or decades, pile on, then results on individual behavior that is really hostile. And then I guess they're probably like super needing a lot of whatever. If they're willing to rob you in front of the cops, I think they're probably struggling.
Yeah. A big thing there is glue huffing. So industrial shoe glue. A lot of people are huffing that.
Yeah.
So they need the money for the glue. Yeah. And there's also people like soliciting, like prostitution. It's really, I really want to go back. There's so much to see there, but going solo without a tour guide, it's definitely something different.
There are places, and then just plain and simple, I think the social challenges and the problems they have, if you're coming from the outside, you just gotta hire a guide. And yeah, there is no way around it. We all love to say, oh, I did it differently and I came in and I just explored this way. But if you're running to that hostility, I guess the country's not ready. And I like to think that countries go through cycles, and they're somewhere in the future, countries like Ethiopia find their way. But I've seen it in Latin America, just they get safer. Like in a couple of weeks ago in Salvador, just because they clean it out. This is my time to go, because in 5 years, probably the president is going to stay in power and things are going to turn the other way. So it's just a specific time window. I don't think those countries just progressively get better. I think it's just up and downs.
Yeah,
it's finding that window.
I was on 180 in El Salvador. Okay, later.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pull it off. I think the country is small in population, so you can still do that. And I don't even know much about stuff. The more I talk, the dumber I sound. But I'll say this, that I think when countries are big in population, it's very difficult to, after centuries, to turn things around. I always thought about that Colombia is just 55 million people. It's just very hard to change things dramatically. But I think Salvador is a smaller country that you can get people behind you in a way that, and it's apparently is safer. And it's always been beautiful, but now it's safe.
I mean, from the murder capital of the world to, the safest in all of the Americas, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it must be like a little bit bigger than Connecticut, though, right? In terms of size and what.
And in terms of size and population, I'm shooting from the hip here. I think it's probably a couple 2-3 million people. Yeah. And interesting as the airport is 45 minutes from the capital, so you don't have to go to the capital. That's the challenge with Latin America, in my opinion, is the capitals are a little bit rough, right? If you can't avoid them, it's usually for good. But all capitals have the central flights just going to the capital. This one, the airport is far, so you can go from the airport to places without having to go there. So we'll see. I'll report back if I don't fuck up the camera, the SD card.
Yeah. When did you go to Chile, by the way?
Earlier in January. It was. Yeah, I went with my wife. With her, she's really good planning. So I get a chance to tag along and learn, because she's the traveler. I am just the middle life crisis guy, trying to travel more. But she's the one who's always traveled, and she knows many languages. So she will plan and do a good job with budgets. And I've been learning over the years. But she doesn't care about posting anything. And I'm the one who's like, all right, I want to get this attention from strangers.
Definitely. It's sort of like an iPad. I
So
post, I just start scrolling up and down, seeing the likes come in.
yeah, it's like the dopamine. And yeah. Usually I don't have accounts that friends follow me. I guess some would, but I like more when the strangers because it's straightforward. But let me ask you: so you've been to many places that are counterintuitive. Um, I believe you've been to Pakistan. Is that correct? So how's that? How's that experience? How did you get there?
How did I get there? Like arrive?
Yeah, logistics.
Logistics. I flew from Dubai to at a layover in Karachi and then landed in. It's a very Islamabad's very pristine. You know, everything's perfect. They built it in like the 60s, so it's kind of not what you expect in Pakistan, and it's what I think Pakistanis would want to show the world of Pakistan. But that's not what I really care to see because it's not many people live there. It's just sort of like their glamour project. But outside, like Peshawar, is a pretty cool place. It's right on the border with Afghanistan, and if you pay attention to certain groups of unsavory people, a lot of action goes on there. And Lahore is an incredible place. The fort there is my favorite. I spent most of my time in Pakistan, unfortunately, very close to a bathroom because my stomach can't really handle it.
I get you. You get some beef. Not literal. You got some beef with KFC. Is that what I've heard? Word in the street is.
Yeah, Iraqi Kurdistan KFC, worst in the world. They really tried to kill me, I think, because it's uncomparable to any. I don't know if you've ever been like naked staring into a toilet bowl, just hoping just wishing for death. Death was a better alternative than what I had to go through. And then I had my flight booked in like the middle of my sickness, right? So I had to leave. I was going to Turkey, and I got a taxi to the airport. And in Kurdistan, there's a whole bunch of security when you have to go to an airport. They bus you from like the entrance to like another terminal, and then they touch you inappropriately at TSA. And then I finally got to the stand where they check my tickets again and they asked for the COVID test. I was there in 2021, didn't have it. They kicked me out. And this time I was like, I'm not paying for another taxi. I'm like 30 minutes away from my hotel on foot. And that was a bad idea to walk back to the hotel with that sickness. But they had the helicopters flying above too.
Oh, dude, sounds extremely painful. And is that, I guess, the worst food poisoning you've had?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly if it was like the chicken, but it must have been the chicken because that's all I really had at that point. Whatever it was.
I have a lot of dietary restrictions, so from the get-go. So, and it's nothing like lactose intolerance or gluten. It's a little bit more than that. And when I travel, usually I feel better because I think there's preservatives in the US. The food that we put here makes me a little bit more sick. But I caught a water bacteria, lives in water. And I was sick for a while. And I'm like, okay, my allergies are getting worse. And the gastroenterologist was, no, I think you got a bacteria. So I got antibiotics and it got so much better. Went to Chile, and you don't have to be concerned about drinking water in Chile that much. And the desert, they have a high mineral content, so they tell you don't drink that because you're gonna get sick. You're not used to it. So I'm like buying bottles of water, all good. The guy from the hostel goes, "Oh well, actually, I have filtered water here if you want to refill. Please stay hydrated because it's very dry." So I'm like, okay, cool. I refill my bottle before doing the activities of the day. That was early, and by about 4 p.m., I pulled the water and I said, "Oh, that's a water in my backpack. Let me just get some water, hydrate." And I start drinking. And I feel something funny in the water, and I'm like, "Huh? I wonder what's going." I looked at it. A whole colony in the water. A whole colony has ground, and I'm like, "All right, I guess my gastroenterologist and me are gonna get tight. And gonna start exchanging numbers, and I'm waiting to see what's up." But it's just kind of like how bacteria grows that fast in a bottle of water. You could literally see the jelly just floating on water.
And I didn't know that also applied to brushing your teeth. So I guess I've been making that mistake the whole time I've been traveling, just brushing my teeth with water.
That's sometimes I've seen people getting sick from brushing their teeth. I guess there are places where I know for sure you can't like Mexico City for Montezuma revenge. You can't just do that. But let me ask you this: what's been the favorite place you visited?
My favorite place in the world is Namibia. It's incredible in my opinion. I rented a car. Well, the first week I was in Namibia, I was deathly ill. The second worst after Kurdistan, I'd say. But I got through that, and I planned on 3 weeks. So I had 2 weeks of actual travel after I recovered, and drove around the entire country, just listening to music, watching the mostly desert go by. And there's little, I don't know if you know, like old Western style gas stations, what they would look like, but it's pretty much that in little villages.
Wow.
It's really cool if you don't want to interact with people, just be in nature. And when you do see people like at the hotel, they're very friendly because you're the first person they've seen in quite some time.
And so I remind me, and I'm not really good at geography. Is Windhoek the capital? That's where you landed, and then you rented a car. Because there are cool stuff everywhere, but the most things are what the Skeleton Coast and
Yeah, Skeleton Coast.
and the desert.
Deadvlay is like that petrified tree with the dunes. Etosha National Park, where you'll find all the cool animals like elephants, zebras, lions, giraffes. And then down in the south, right next to a town called Luderitz, there's a place called, I believe it's Kolmanskap. It's an abandoned diamond mining town from when Germany colonized it. It's very cool to see. They have also, I went to Fish River Canyon. It's pretty much the Grand Canyon, I guess a little bit less grand, but still worth seeing.
Amazing. What's the English proficiency in Namibia?
I found it to be quite well. I didn't really meet anybody that didn't speak English, but I'm sure there are some.
Yeah. So they have their language, and German, I guess, is still part of in the school systems.
Yeah, I feel like English is pretty everywhere nowadays, even Kyrgyzstan. But that's also where you'll find the clicking language, like that family of languages. So that's really cool to hear.
Absolutely. I would love to just hear two people having a combo. Ah, that sounds amazing, man.
It's not as much, it's not like, they'll say words and then there's like a click every now and then. Cool to hear.
Really cool to experience. And is it renting a car sometimes they ask you for like a $10,000 in deposit or something like that? Or straightforward?
No, because I know in Europe they'll do like 5,000. It was pretty straightforward. They didn't tell me it was a manual, so they sent the guy out to teach me how to drive a manual. So I was at a police checkpoint leaving Windhoek, and I stopped and I was so nervous because if they found out I don't know how to work this thing. But after I told them where we were going or whatever, I remember like trying to start it and I stalled it, and I was like, my bad, and they're laughing. Like 2 more tries and I finally got it. And the guy was like, he's just nervous. That's fine. But I think they might have 3 shots, but maybe if I stalled 5 times, something would have happened.
I was in Tasmania, and the whole thing, they drive on the other side. So that's up first for me. I don't own a car, so I don't drive very often. So I'm in Tasmania, and I reserved an automatic, right? Because I learned with stick, but I never drove one. So I know that kind of like the theory of it. And when I'm there, they tell me, no, that we only have stick. And I'm like, okay, fuck. I got, all right, let's do this. I don't care. Let's find out. And they saw me. I was watching a YouTube tutorial, how to drive stick. And the guy looked at me. He goes, all right, mate. No. He makes phone calls. He goes like, oh, I guess you're not automatic. They were scared. It's like a lot of curveballs on the other side. And I didn't know how to drive stick, so they felt sorry for me, and they found an automatic, and they brought it to the airport. But the driving in Namibia is wild, because you need to be careful with the tank. You tell me if it's right or not, because gas stations are not everywhere.
Oh, in Namibia, yeah, you got to be really careful about that. And I had like maybe 3 close calls of like, am I just going to be stuck on the side of the road? But even if I did, I did get stuck in the sand one day, and a couple from South Africa actually helped like immediately. So anybody there is generally really helpful, I think.
That's really cool to really start closing this on a really good note. There's a lot of things that I see from your experience is that people It doesn't matter where they're from. I see a lot of wholesome connections that you make with people when you travel. How do you always end up finding like people helping you and being nice to you and wanted to show them around? How do you find these people?
That's a good question, because even I wish I knew, but it's just like I could walk around a place and people, it seems like people are just always excited when a foreigner is there, wants to show off their country, and wants to make sure everybody has a good time. Maybe because I'm a bit young, that's part of it. If I'm having some trouble, like even in Ethiopia, I say all this stuff about the negatives, but there were people there. Well, 2 girls were actually doing a kiss or slap challenge for TikTok, which was interesting. Yeah. But there were people like telling the beggars on the street to get away, and like somebody touched, people were so everywhere. People are people. And that's something I wish maybe TikTok commenters understood. Like, I don't have a problem with any sort of nation or country. I'd like to visit everywhere because there's good people everywhere, right?
You don't have any problem with any nation, but I think there's a nation that has a problem with you.
Which one?
Western Sahara.
Morocco. Morocco has a problem with Western Sahara. Yeah. I love Morocco. I had a great time there. And then I made one little video about Western Sahara, and they started attacking me in the comments. So then I just sort of went with I joined the cause.
Well, geopolitics, man. We're just little people because it's a little world. Yeah. What's your TikTok handle?
It's a little world.
Are you the same on maybe other social media?
TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. It's a little world.
Awesome. I appreciate you making some time to chat with me about stuff. I definitely, hopefully, this has been a good experience for you, because I think we can do way more conversations like this one, and as we get to know each other, maybe you enjoy them as much as I did.
Good time here. Love to do it again.
A special thanks to Shane Ivers for playing the music. You can find more music by Shane at silvermansound.com. Pulsar 2017 by Shane Ivers is licensed under CC BY 4.0.